Code for America you can think of sort of like a Peace Corps for geeks. The name derives from Teach for America, but we get people who are not necessarily coming straight out of college. But they're rock star tech and design people. Some of them are taking a year off from Google or Apple. But we get them to go work with city governments. And they work with them for a year on understanding their problems and working on particular web apps and mobile apps and processes that can help them work more efficiently, more openly. So they're working very much at this convergence of cities and data and better ways of doing things, much like Verge is. People have asked us a lot if we're going to work at the federal level. We're really committed to this idea of cities as the functional unit of government and as the place where innovation is happening. So we're going to stick with cities for now.
So you had some great stories about different cities and specifically about Al the fire hydrant. So you want to talk about that just for a minute, about how that worked?
Sure. So one of the teams we sent out last year went to the city of Boston. They became very deeply embedded in how city government works and came up with some innovative ways to make things better. One of them was a really little app called Adopt a Hydrant. They noticed that the hydrants get covered with snow when they plow the streets, they go through, and all the snow gets piled up on the side. And it's important that hydrants be accessible in the case of a fire. So one of the fellows noticed that people are shoveling the sidewalks right in front of those hydrants. And he wrote a little app that allows you to agree, when you adopt it, you agree to dig it out when it snows. If you do your job, you get to name the fire hydrant. So many of the fire hydrants in Boston now have names, which you know only obviously if you're on the app. If you don't do your job, someone can steal it from you. What's great is that they're really approaching this problem of government from a different place than people usually approach government from. They're certainly using government data, which is an important part of what we do. They needed the data in order to locate the fire hydrants in the apps. But they're using an approach that says the government doesn't always have to do it. We can engage citizens in this process. We can use their hands. So that notion of doing things together as the core function of government is kind of right in the middle of that app.
And I think that's one of the interesting things that's very different about Code for America. I mean, you've got the tech geek part of it, but there's also community and sort of what community means in this evolving relationship. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, if you think about what's happened to media and technology over the past 20 years, it's been a process of breaking down silos, breaking down barriers, and getting people involved. So, what we're asked to do every moment of our lives now and through media is to participate. But that means that we've sort of been asked to provide a lot of voices. We're able to weigh in on issues all the time. If we have an issue, we can write about it. Everyone's got an audience, which is fantastic. So that's one definition of community that's important, and we've become engaged in a very confusing and loud collection of voices. And another definition of community is to get people using their hands to do things. And so that's sort of where we're trying to take it. Cities are important, but cities are collections of people. So how do we get them to be part of this process of doing things together, which can be government or it can be outside government?
So cities are also government. And how has the reception been to Code for America's efforts in the halls of legislatures and mayors?
Actually, remarkably enthusiastic. The legislators don't get us as much as the bureaucrats. We really believe that if we're going to fix government, we're not going to do it probably through the political layer. I think we've all had that experience of trying to get a new leader elected and then hoping that everything changes and finding it's just not that simple. And so we're really looking at what is the machinery of government? How does it really operate? And when you go into the machinery and you're working in the bureaucracy, you find people who, sure, some of them are very resistant to change, there's no doubt about that, but a much greater number than you would expect are really welcoming change. They're trying to drive innovation. They're trying to find the other people who also want change. And so they're just sucking us up like a sponge, and in fact fighting over the chance to work with the Code for America fellows in the cities that have brought them in.